Because developers only here and there, so I think it's easier to zone the township one than all the other ones. Alright?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Would everybody please rise to salute our flag?
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening again, everybody. Thanks for coming out this evening. It's a few minutes past 6. I'm calling the meeting for 6 o'clock, so I'd like to start public hearings on time. If you've ever been to the Master Plan Committee meetings, one thing we do is we start on time. So, good evening again. Thank you for coming. Before we go any further, I always give a brief introduction at the beginning of these meetings, just to let everybody know why we're here and to remind us of this process. The Township of Lakewood is in the process of updating their master plan reexamination report. Every 10 years or so, by state law, every municipality is required to update their master plan, and Lakewood has come upon that time frame. So about a year ago, the Township Committee set up a Master Plan Advisory Board, and of that advisory board, different subcommittees were set up. We had a Transportation subcommittee, a Downtown subcommittee, and several other subcommittees, including a Housing Density subcommittee, of which this meeting is a meeting of the Housing Density subcommittee. I'm not a member of the Housing Density subcommittee. I'm the chairman of the overall advisory board. But I am going to chair this meeting because the chairman of this subcommittee, unfortunately, he can't attend due to health issues. So I told him as chairman of the overall advisory board that I would chair this meeting. These gentlemen that are up on the dais with me, they are members of the Housing Density Subcommittee. I'm going to ask them just to state their names so everybody knows at least who's here, who you're looking at, who you're talking to. Starting on my left.
Shalom Landman.
Can't do you.
That one may not be working.
I don't think the mic's on.
Shalom Landman.
Heard you.
Good.
Mike McLaughlin.
Your mic's not.
Can't do you.
You can use iPhones and Droids, and nobody knows how to press buttons on iPhones anymore. You know, it's-
Ali Versliff.
So everybody, just please press the buttons on your microphones, make sure they're on. Also, I just want to remind the board members that there's a conception in this room that the microphones don't. The microphones actually do work in this room. You just have to speak into them, and just if you do have comments, speak into the microphones clearly so the entire room can hear you. And at the same time, I know that everybody's going to be quiet, but I always say that if we can keep the noise level down to a minimum so we can have a good interaction, that's always best. So this is a meeting of the Housing Density Subcommittee. This is the third public meeting that this subcommittee has had. The subcommittee has had 2 workshop sessions amongst the members of the subcommittee over the last couple of weeks. The minutes of those sessions were posted on the township website today and are available for public perusal. I should really introduce our professional also.
Martin Truscott, T&M Associates.
T&M Associates is the township planner. They've been working closely with the township on not only this reexamination report, but also on the smart growth plan that the township has, amongst other planning items for over 10 years. So Marty's very familiar with not only the master plan, but the smart growth plan and different aspects of planning with Lakewood Township. So Marty's going to give Marty's going to give everyone a general overview of what was discussed at the last two workshop conference meetings of the subcommittee. We're gonna have some discussion from the board members, if the board members want to add anything to that introduction, and then we're gonna have an hour of public comment. I don't have the stopwatch for the clock, and I don't really like to limit comment from the public. I would just ask everybody to whoever is gonna come and make comment before the mic, just to keep your points. Just keep your comments on point, and then this way we can allow as many people as possible that want to speak. Even though we'd like to have an hour of public comment, but if it's a little bit longer, and if more people want the opportunity to speak, that's fine. One thing I just want to say about the subcommittee, people hear about density and housing density, and this subcommittee. Although the subcommittee did receive particular specific zoning requests for particular pieces of property, and those zoning requests were reviewed by the subcommittee, request by request, the subcommittee didn't so much look at each particular request on its own. The subcommittee really looked at larger tracts of land within the township that are still undeveloped, neighborhoods that are not fully built out. No one looked at zoning requests on their own context. Everything was really looked at in the context of a bigger picture of existing development patterns within certain neighborhoods and certain areas. Marty's going to review some of the ideas of the subcommittee, but the subcommittee really took a look at what type of development should occur in the future. We know that there's a healthy demand for housing in this town. But what should development look at moving forward? The subcommittee looked at things like bigger setbacks from main roadways, wider internal roads. We all know that many of the roads that are approved in town internally inside developments are really not wide enough. You have cars parked on both sides of the street. You don't have enough room for garbage pickup. The subcommittee looked at things like wider roads, dedicated areas for garbage pickup, dedicated areas for pickup and drop off for school buses, for children, how to do things a little bit better. And none of the recommendations of the subcommittee, of which the draft report is not ready yet. The draft report, it didn't really make sense to do a draft report before we had a public hearing. But none of the recommendations, the subcommittee is very strong on implementing certain improvements for development before really any recommendation of theirs go forward, and that's something that the subcommittee is very serious about. But I'm gonna pass over the. I'm gonna let Marty from T&M Associates give everybody a general overview, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Justin. Again, my name is Martin Truscott from T&M Associates. You can all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm going to give just a brief overview. I'm not going to go into specific zoning requests, which were elaborated in a minute. Let me just provide some detail to some of the discussion. As you may know, the requests that have been considered by the subcommittee, the Housing Density Committee, were requests that were submitted to the town administration and referred to the planning board, ultimately to the master plan advisory committee and this committee, which is, as Justin's pointed out, is a subcommittee to that advisory committee. So they came in and then they were referred to, and they were asked to look at and grant some kind of opinion of those. The committee met recently, as Justin mentioned, on June 21st and 29th, two very lengthy workshop sessions, a lot of very productive discussion. And what the committee did was, with our assistance in terms of providing additional information, the committee looked at the rezoning request as to what the current zoning is, what the development patterns in the area are, how did it fit into the smart growth plan. That was a very critical factor in terms of what the town's designation is in terms of that area, and because the smart growth plan is an adopted element of the master plan. The committee also looked at the 2007 master plan reexamination. In that reexamination report, the planning board at the time adopted recommendations concerning, it was over 35 rezoning requests, and they made opinions on those requests. It was a whole series of meetings to go through that process. And they made those recommendations as to whether they approved or denied it. Those were as a part of the adopted plan. And what we discussed with the committee was that a lot of those recommendations have never been implemented. Some have, but the vast majority have not been adopted. The town has done some rezoning since then, since 2007. There's been numerous rezoning in different areas of town, but they weren't part of those recommendations. But those are the critical factors that the committee also looked at different areas of the town in terms of undeveloped areas, and as part of that whole process. So just to keep in mind that this process, we're talking about opinions or thoughts or comments on some of the zoning and land use designations and the master plan designations. Keep in mind, this is part of the land use plan. This is not that, and that will go to the master plan advisory committee, which will again render its opinion and its comments, and which will be recommended or go on to the whole planning board, and planning board as part of the master plan. So again, and that's part of the master plan. It's not zoning, so no one's changing land use designations overnight. The recommendation is going to go through this process, a very public process. There'll be numerous meetings. The master plan advisory committee is going to meet on July 17th as part of its process, and that again will be public. And then whatever meetings or hearings the planning board will have. So there'll be a very public process. So with that said, let me just quickly go through some of the I'll hit 2 or 3 general areas, because the request came in from all parts of town, but a couple areas. One in the northwest part of town, the area by north of James Street, Neiman Street, Drake. In that area, there were several rezoning requests. Now this was an area that's currently zoned R40, that's 1 acre lots. There's homes with 1 acre lots and some schools. This area had already been part of a land use plan amendment in 2014, which the planning board recommended some rezoning to different designations. Much of the area, some stayed as R40 and some other to R12, which is basically a third or a quarter of an acre type lot size. And then those areas were adopted by the planning board, and actually those and many areas were rezoned by ordinance by the township committee. But ultimately, that area, because of the adoption of the master plan in terms of the process, it had, as a technicality, it was overturned. So it's currently stayed as R40. So it's still an R40 1 acre designation. So those are requests. Some of the requests came in asking to reinstate what was previously
Marty,
approved.
Marty, I'm sorry to interrupt, I just a question for clarification, maybe for the general public, because I'm a little bit vague on it as well. When you say something was overturned, it was I'm not sure that I totally understand, maybe the public might not understand. Could you clarify a bit?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, in terms of overturned, meaning by the court, someone was aggrieved by the decision of the rezoning and took it to the Superior Court, and they were able to prevail. And the judge, because of, as I say, technicality, in terms of the master plan, the land plan amendment, it was the judge overturned it and said it's null and void. So it's as if it didn't happen. Okay, so does that?
So if I understand correctly, then that area was going to be, or the master plan recommended an area be rezoned. It was challenged to some degree in a court. It was ours, it was an R40, it was going to be rezoned something else, but it's an R40 now because the court's overturned it.
Exactly.
And somebody said that this area should remain R40.
Yeah, and
Some
so
court
it's
somewhere.
R40, so.
Right, so if we elect to change that, we're going against the court decision.
No, the court decision was based on technicality. It was not based on land use or planning decisions. It had nothing to do with.
Technicality meaning what?
Technicality meaning, the re-examination report, the land use plan amendment, was judged not to be a comprehensive re-examination, and so the judge deemed it null and void, but had nothing to do with the actual planning decision and land use plan amendment. So it's still, so there's still a validity in terms of the master plan decision and amendment. Okay? So, in terms of the recommendations, some of the requests came in for basically like an R12, which was, again, as I say, about a third of an acre type development pattern. And this is an area, this is outside of the smart growth plan, so the smart growth plan is neutral in terms of that designation. The committee was favorable towards that designation, more of a quarter of an acre type designation as a development pattern. But go along with that. With that said, the committee wants to set up has a different vision of development strategy in terms of the town, and I think Justin touched on it a little bit earlier in his comments. That may be. With that said, it would be a development pattern that's not that more with perimeter buffer, with so that homes are set back more from busy roads, with wider streets, as he mentioned, so to improve the circulation and provide for circulation for not only cars and parking, but for bus circulation, that type of thing. Maybe, and with the buffers, you might be able to have some walking paths, so a little more recreation. So I think the committee's envisioning, and hopefully I speak for echo their comments, more of a development pattern that's a little more amenable, more aesthetic, and a different development pattern that's occurred in the past. Maybe the buffer could be around developments to provide that transition to other areas with berms and landscaping, that type of thing, so there is that transition. And as I mentioned, recreation. And of course, the critical thing is in infrastructure improvements, that the roads, the intersections and improvements that are put in prior to the new developments going in. I think that's a very, very strong, critical component of the committee's thinking.
Right, just on recreation, I think it also was mentioned at some point that recreation should not necessarily only be for development, but for the surrounding area as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So it wouldn't be just built into it, but it would be adjoining, yeah. The other area, one of the other areas that the committee got some requests in on was the area bordered by Prospect Street and Massachusetts Avenue, down into the southern, more southern, central part of the township. And this is what I always refer to as a cross street core. This is considered as a growth area as part of the smart growth plan. It's a largely undeveloped area. There has been some development approvals in and around that part of it. It has different designations, A1, which is a 2-acre designation, an industrial designation, some R20, which is essentially like a half-acre residential designation. So it's a mixture of zoning designations. As I said, it's mostly vacant and forested, and there's extensive township owned properties within that area. So that's part of it. That's what the area consists of. Again, the committee has very big concerns about making sure infrastructure, road improvements are in place as part of any new development. But in terms of some of the requests, I'm not going to go into specifics, but some of the requests, the committee's thinking was to, the development should be consistent with what's being built in the area, whether it's, I guess, single family or mostly a small lot, single family for the most part. And there is, I know there's some multifamily out in that area too. And again, in the same similar vein, the development strategy in that area too. The smart growth plan calls for a buffer along Cross Street, provide that perimeter buffer, provide possibly a mixture of lot sizes, so there could be one lot yield in terms of development, but with possibly clustering some of the lots and providing open space, and as I said, with the buffer area. Some areas also, and the committee also looked at the highway corridors. There were a couple of requests along the routes, and it was really Route 70. There were no requests along Route 9 except for a very specific, more of a technical zone change, correction of the zoning map. That was one request, but along Route 9, that was the only one we had. There were some areas in Route 9 in terms of providing for some mixed use, a business zone that would allow some commercial development, but it's already zoned commercial, but it would allow for some residential use in terms of a mixture, in terms of some of the zoning allows for conditional uses in certain zone districts. One of the other areas was in the adult communities, not the adult communities per se, but the zone requirements. There's an R40, in the R40 and R20 zone in the ordinance, there's a provision that allows for 100-acre tracts, 100-plus acre tracts, you're allowed to provide a planned community as long as it provides for seniors. So there was a request to provide, to drop the senior requirement, but still provide for a planned community. So those committees, I hope I speak for the committee in terms of the option to allow continuing the planned community option, but not necessarily require the senior requirement, so that to allow for some younger families and to move in, not as part of it. But now the committee was very clear in terms of what there's very little 100-acre tracts left in town at this point. I think we looked at it, we did look it up, and it's really basically the golf courses are the only thing. So it's really not going to, any kind of change, and that's not going to really affect any new development. So those are the sort of the summary. As I mentioned, there's some numerous other ones, but I'm not going to go through in detail each one of those. So at this point, I'll just leave it at that.
That's very good, thanks, Marty. And just to conclude Marty's introduction, the committee, the smart growth plan has what's called growth nodes. It calls for growth nodes in town. Certain large tracts that are currently undeveloped, and then certain tracts along the highway corridors, from Route 70 and Route 9. But the smart growth plan doesn't really give any definition of what type of development should occur within those growth nodes. The smart growth plan is very vague on the type of development. So the committee tried to give some definition as to what type of development should occur within those growth nodes and what that development should look like, as we explained, with the wider roads, more open space and recreation, not just the small playgrounds that we're used to seeing in a lot of larger developments. Some serious open space, serious recreation that's available to everybody, and that's really what the committee focused on, rather than, like I was saying before, just individual rezoning requests. A lot of these rezoning requests were within these what are called growth nodes. But the committee really didn't look at individual requests, rather looked at the whole area in general, and what their vision of growth in that area should look like. And as Marty stated, this committee is going to have a draft report, which is going to be presented, which is going to be finalized by this committee and then presented at the July 17th Master Plan Committee meeting. And then the planning board is going to have a series of probably two or three meetings to review the entire master plan, not just the density aspect of the entire entire land use element of the master plan. Those are probably going to occur in mid-September. Actually, dates have already been set, or are being set now for those hearings. So those are going to be dedicated hearings of the planning board for the master plan. So they're not going to be, you know, like a regular planning board meeting that occurs every 2 weeks. They'll be dedicated hearings for the master plan. And then ultimately it'll go before the township committee for their adoption. So there's going to be several more hearings, 3 to 5, I'm going to say, more public hearings, you know, after this one where there's going to be more presentations and then obviously more opportunity for the public to put their input on the record. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one other comment, just want to add, just to clarify. I think there was some misunderstanding about the township-owned properties. Some of this rezoning request included some township-owned properties, either by error or omission or whatever. But those, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that there's no consideration of any development of township properties. Those areas are excluded from any committee.
that's correct, yeah. And even township-owned properties within the growth notes, those were not considered because the township-owned properties, we didn't really feel like it was up to the subcommittee to decide what the township, you know, should do with the municipally owned properties. The you know, governing body are going to have their own ideas of what to do with those properties. So, unless any, you know, subcommittee members really have any questions or comments for our professional or anything else they'd like to say, at this time, we'd like to open up the meeting to the public. You know, again, like I said before, just do your best to keep your comments, you know, on point, and you know, we're here to listen. So. Yes, sir. So in the beginning, if you could just state your name so everybody knows who's talking, and you don't have to give your address or anything like that. But go ahead.
Good evening, Moshe. Designer someone to Amherst. I just want to ask on that last point. When the township committee right now sells a piece of land, it's already zoned because it has a zoning in place. So they announce that they're going to sell block X, lot number 3, for a certain amount of money, and then the potential buyers come in, they bid on it. They're coming to bid based on the zoning that's in place now. So that's why I'm just wondering on that last point when you said that you're not looking at anything that the township currently owns to change the zoning. I would assume that some people would be interested in that. Like if the township still owns it, but they want to buy it and they want to get a different zone, then.
You know, again, those are municipally owned properties. It's up to the governing body what they want to do with those properties. So this subcommittee did not look at municipally owned properties. Period.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for your volunteer work. I emphasize the word volunteer. My attendance here tonight is intended to be a constructive expression of a few ideas and concerns. I think it's curious that we're meeting again in a public hearing after reading the April report, which did include recommendations that were published. Several very good recommendations related to density, infrastructure, and things of that nature. It is my impression that there is some level or type of pressure being placed upon this committee to modify those previously drafted recommendations, particularly as it relates to housing density, which goes right to the purpose of this committee. And I would respectfully say the consideration of special interests is not the intended purpose of a master plan review. If the work of the subcommittee is going to continue between now and the 17th of July, when this all wraps up, or at least this phase of it wraps up, I ask you to give serious consideration to resolving the inconsistencies and contradictions in the Uniform Development Ordinance through master plan recommendations. I think we all know that while there is a master plan where the rubber meets the road, where reality occurs, where implementation occurs, is in the Uniform Development Ordinance. Marty alluded to it. Since August of 2005, there have been 82 amendments to the Uniform Development Ordinance. That is, I believe, an absurd total of amendments to a basic ordinance of a municipality. 82. Okay? There are multiple changes to definitions, changes to permitted uses, changes to conditional uses, and at this point, our UDO, or Uniform Development Ordinance, I would describe as a three-dimensional maze. Let me offer just one example. What do we think open space is? It was mentioned and appreciated in your comments. If you read the current Uniform Development Ordinance definition of open space, it permits housing. If there is housing, it is not open space. And I could offer many more like that, but I need not bore you with detail that I hope you're already familiar with. But there needs to be clarity in definition. There are other examples where there are directly contradictory statements in the ordinance. And so whether the professionals are representing an applicant or representing an objector, they can make their case. And when that happens, we all spend more money in the courtroom, which is ultimately unnecessary. You did make mention of the desire to comply with the land use elements of a master plan review, which is encouraging the transition of the buffers, the infrastructure requirements. They have to come first. I didn't hear much about the importance of a traffic plan or utility capacity. And utility capacity is one of the stated requirements of a land use plan for the state of New Jersey. So I'd ask you to take a look at that if you have not already done so. And I do appreciate the comments about the various letters. I would ask you not to be fooled or lulled into thinking that the preponderance of the zoning change proposals are anything but the pursuit of a special interest. Several of the letters list an unnamed client. Search of tax records reveal multiple owners who have not been informed of the requested change. And the best example, which was alluded to, are the township lands. After researching the ownership of the various requests, I saw that there were approximately 8 township-owned pieces. I wrote to the mayor and said, did you retain a planner to make this recommendation? No. Do you intend to have it rezoned? No. And that's what led to their removal. But if the township itself is not informed of potential changes to their zoning, what about residents whose value of their homes could be impacted, possibly negatively, possibly positively, with a proposed zoning change? I think residents in the affected areas are entitled to be notified. Related to this unnamed client piece, and that's in many letters, there are rigorous standards associated with a typical planning or zoning application that include, among other things, certification of ownership and proof of tax payment. In my research, I found 4 of the properties that were recommended for rezoning that have overdue taxes. There needs to be detailed reasoning for the proposed change. And there has to be notice to the owners who are potentially impacted. None of this has been presented at this point. I'd also express to you a concern about a potential conflict of interest. Adam Pfeffer sits on this committee. If clients are unnamed, how can Adam be sure that he is not unknowingly, I want to be clear about that, unknowingly violating a conflict of interest requirement of his law license? The names of the clients needs to be known not only to the committee but to the public. And I understand that you're looking at the bigger picture rather than specific proposals, but there are a couple that I feel compelled to comment on because of the content and the ethics associated with them. The committee received a letter dated June 9th from FWH Associates suggesting that clustered housing be permitted in the R40 and R20 zones that was alluded to in the introductory comments. That letter did not come from FW Associates. They had no knowledge of it. In fact, GDMS was charged $300 by the actual author to prepare and submit this letter. I think that is a bit disingenuous, if not a rather gross violation of the ethical standards for every licensed planner. On June 13th, there was a letter from GDMS suggesting the same modification. The wording and portions of the 2 letters is remarkably similar. Notwithstanding that, and I do appreciate the candor and the openness of GDMS in making their opinion known, notwithstanding this, there are a couple of important points that need to be reviewed pertaining to Eagle Ridge Golf Course. One, if we look at our current Uniform Development Ordinance, basement apartments are not permitted in a clustered development. Basement apartments are a rather common element of most development requests in this community. Cluster developments here in Lakewood were established per the standards outlined in the Federal Housing of Older Persons Act, often referred to as the HOPA Act. It is unwise to ignore or forego those HOPA standards. Similarly, The service delivery impact and the environmental impact of a HOPA development, an age-restricted development, is recognized in study after study to be minimal compared to other development. Two classic examples directly affecting this town: refuse collection and school buses. I've lived on Eagle Ridge Circle for almost 4 years, and I have never seen a school bus in my community because we're all old folks. We also have to consider the history of that specific tract of land. Going back to 1996, the applications, the minutes, and the adopted resolutions treat the Eagle Ridge Golf Course and the fairways as one single planned development. There was one subdivision application, one resolution of approval, and yes, only one CAFRA permit to cover the entire area. It would be at least imprudent, if not potentially illegal, to rezone a portion of a planned development that has already, as has been requested. The entire golf course and fairways area was treated as one and the same, as a planned development. Okay? Last, in the final paragraph of the GDMS letter, it refers to an undeveloped land tract. According to the Kochs organization, thousands of dollars were spent to develop both the golf course and the residential area. It is not an undeveloped tract of land. It is not vacant land. It is revenue producing, it is tax producing land. And again, to treat this as an undeveloped parcel is at least deceiving, if not completely disingenuous. I do appreciate your attention to these points. I trust that that any modifications you make to your April draft will honor the purpose and intent of the master plan review and the comments made tonight. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Walt Lucas. I live off of Cross Street. What I just want to talk about is the traffic and zoning on Cross Street. I've been to the town committee a couple of times about this. One day I took a video of the traffic and showed it to them, and it's all generated by the schools. About 2, 3, 4 years ago, the state came in and did a traffic study and found out the rest of the state, traffic starts at 7 to 8 in the morning when everyone goes to work, but here it's at 9, 10 o'clock. So it's the schools. So I'm going to give you, again, I'm not familiar with anything else but Cross Street. That's where I've been since 1979. Been in Lakewood and other place since about 1966. So this is traffic, Cross Street, zoning on Cross Street. There is some good zoning out there, and the good zoning is, for instance, there are commercial buildings. There's Jay's buses, there's a Lakewood Business Park, there's Complin's, there's good zoning. There's good zoning, the fairways is there. There's 1,100 homes, fairways, good zoning. The golf course is there for recreation. So what is missing, standing at James and Cross, what's missing is something for families. That's what's missing. A little bit of history. The fairways came into existence somewhere around 1997. And 1,100 homes. And there was not one indication of traffic increase. All right, so you know, we rode around, everybody rides around, and you never saw any problem with traffic. The golf course came into existence maybe 2, 3 years later, and the golf course has like 200 golfers a day. They got banquets, they got Mother's Day, holidays, you name it, Christmas. Again, no increase in traffic. Again, I lived there since 1979. It's the schools. So what's missing, stand again at that corner, James and Cross, there's only a half a mile to Jackson. And that's all it is. What I'm contending is if the zoning was changed to permit families, the schools would not come in. What's happening now is this. All the other folks who lived out there have been there longer than I. So one by one, they're seniors, they're retiring, and nobody wants, with our 40 zoning, no one wants to buy the property because builders don't want to buy it. Nobody wants to buy it. Nobody wants to live on R40. So what's happening is one by one, they're selling to schools. If you stand at that corner, James and Cross, there are most of them are within a quarter of a mile, but there's over 20 schools and they suck up over 50 acres. All right, so there's schools, more schools. If the zoning from James and Cross going to Jackson, because that's where all this vacant land is, if that were changed to something else, families would move in, and just like Fairways, just like Eagle Ridge, families aren't going to produce the kind of traffic that you're now seeing with schools. Let me check my notes here. Okay, and it turns out now that there are 3 more schools coming. There's one, it's at Newport and Cross. They're paving the entrance right now. Another 2 acres of schools, 50 students, 200 buses, cars. On the opposite corner, there's another school that bought that property. They were out surveying it in June. Another 2 acres of schools. All right? If you go down the end of, I believe it's Bellevue, Newport, out that way, someone else is selling another 1+ acres to a school. So what I'm contending is if the zoning there were changed to make it favorable for families to move in, if there's nothing for families, traffic won't become a disaster. Right now, it's almost gridlock. 3 more schools are coming, and one by one, as these folks retire, they're going to sell. You're going to see schools, right? And they've been trying to buy my property. I'm not interested. The other good thing about I'm an advocate of R10. I lived from 1966 to 79-ish. I lived in what was an R10 area, and what it promoted was a family community. All the kids in the neighborhood grew up together. They went to school together. We had picnics with each other, birthdays with each other, coffee with each other. And it was an R10. So what I'm saying is something for families, zoning for families, another good thing it'll do is by defining this, you're going to let all the utilities know what to expect. You're going to let the power company know, the fire company, the police, the road companies. You're going to let them know what's coming. Simply, but as right now, it's hodgepodge zoning. Somebody shows up, you've got 200 kids in a school, right? So I'm an advocate of R10, and I do believe zoning that area. It's only half a mile from James, put it that way. Everything else out there is commercial, and there's nothing for families. And to help keep schools away and the traffic and 200 kids per pumping in there would be a good thing to do. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Master Plan Subcommittee for the time they put in volunteering. I think the job is a very difficult one. It's a difficult one for you guys as well as the advisory committee that's going to make a recommendation, and then the planning board, and ultimately the township committee. I also think that the public should understand that the recommendations that you guys make have no binding impact. And I think when somebody says that some of these members may have conflicts of interest, I think they've missed the point. Every member that's up here has friends in Lakewood that have property. And as such, there could be a potential conflict of interest. The only way to do this is by having a cross-section of the community, and I think the mayor did a good job in appointing a cross-section. And you guys look at, as you indicated up front, you're looking at generalized situations. You're not looking at the 35 letters that came in. We're going to change this, we're not going to change that. Those letters were intended to give you a focus on an area in accordance with the prior documents that have been approved and the smart growth plan. And I'm glad that you guys are doing the work beyond the recommendation back in April by the chairman to just say, let's approve the smart growth plan, because that doesn't have the details. You guys I don't know what work you're doing, but if it's taking this long, I'm assuming you're doing work to put together the details so that when it gets to the planning board, when it gets for the public hearings, there'll be stuff for people to look at. and it'll be something that the town will have the direction it needs and has lacked for a long time due to waiting on this plan endorsement process. I think because indirectly people have an indication that I'm here to make money. You can see I don't have a jacket and tie on. Nobody's paying me tonight. I sat on an advisory committee back in 2007. I understand the hard work. I been in town, built in town in 1979. I do a lot of work in town. I have some knowledge that I wanted to share with you to help you do your job. I own property in town, as I'm sure everybody else here does. No matter what this committee does, my property is going to get more valuable as everybody else's property in Lakewood does, because that's what happens. As far as my work in town, anybody that knows me knows that I already have more work than I want to do, and I'm going to have more work than I want to do for the next few years till I retire, regardless of what happens on the master plan. Last time I was here, a speaker got up and said there's two groups, the seniors and the builders. And I was offended by that because it's really not that simple an issue. I think the groups tend to go into no growth and smart growth, and there's variations on all of them based on where everybody sits. I built my house on Atlantic Avenue in 1987. It was in an A1 zone. I thought I was going to be buried. I was going to live there. I raised my family there. We thought we were never moving out. I thought it was an estate area. It was going to stay an estate area, and I'd be happy to stay there. I didn't understand back in 1987 that A1 and R40 property in Lakewood has more value to schools than it does to residential development. And 10 years later, I got my neighbors together and I said, this place is going to turn into schools. Let's ask to change it to R12 so that we build nice houses. R12 can be an estate zone in Lakewood. The neighbors at that time said, we like it the way it is. It's beautiful this way, let's leave it. 15 years later, they came back to me and said, we got 6 schools here and all that's coming in is schools. You were right. And they requested a rezoning from the township committee. And it was done. And as Marty indicated, the master plan approved it, the township committee did it, and the judge overturned it on a technicality that improper notice was given. Not that there was anything wrong with the zoning, but they should have notified everybody within 200 feet and everybody involved. The township committee, since the smart growth process was going on, they put it to the side, said let's get smart growth done. Everybody thought it was going to be done quicker. It's been going on for 10 years now. I moved out of Lakewood a couple years ago because the traffic on our streets was more than was suitable for my lifestyle, and I have the availability of moving to Jackson, where I can get a large lot. I don't have to walk to shul on Shabbos, so I can drive everywhere I want to go. A lot of the people in the community don't have that option of moving. For me, the benefits of living in Lakewood, and there are a lot of them, were outweighed by the detriments of the traffic. And I think traffic comes in 2 classes. It comes in the amount of traffic going by and the traffic congestion. And I think traffic congestion, and I've said before, traffic congestion doesn't have to be the same as development. You can have development without traffic congestion. Obviously, most development, if you have development, you're going to have more traffic. If the roads are done properly, you don't have to have traffic congestion. I thought my area wouldn't have the traffic on the roads. The senior communities have that estate-like situation where they have a private community. In their streets, they don't have the traffic that we have on the rest of the streets.
Oh, yeah?
As soon as they come out on any of the Lakewood roads, then they deal with the same traffic. And I think if that traffic congestion was dealt with, I think their quality of life could be maintained. And I think the township committee is moving in that direction. Lakewood has evolved into a city. When I moved in 1979, and Justin, your family has been here since then as well, the traffic was not an issue. We're over 100,000 people here in Lakewood now. It's a city, and it has to be dealt with like a city. Some of the history on the land use, in 1999, we had a land use plan. It said encourage growth and development in appropriate locations. And that master plan specified some areas. In 2007, there was another master plan, and this one said encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth. And it had a lot of recommendations that haven't been implemented because the township was negotiating with the state on the plan endorsement process, and they didn't want to do anything that would disrupt that process. So since that time, a lot of the things that could have been done and should have been done were put to the side and weren't prioritized. When you look at the traffic congestion, which I see as the problem, and my opinion is, and my opinions have been wrong before, I give an opinion, and if it's not right, somebody calls me a liar. That doesn't make you a liar when you have an opinion that's different than somebody else's. My opinion is that traffic congestion is a problem, and it needs to be dealt with. And when you look at the options for dealing with traffic congestion, the answer that most people come up to is, well, stop building. If you stop building in Lakewood today and didn't, you could even change the zones like some of the towns do to larger zones to discourage. It's not going to solve the problem because the schools will buy the property. The residents that are coming, and that's a dynamic in Lakewood that people that aren't here a long time don't understand. The people are coming to Lakewood, whether it's an attraction. It's almost like to the waterfront. The people are coming whether we rezone areas or not. And if they put 2 basement apartments, if they move in Jackson and Toms River, they're still going to have their schools in Lakewood. They're going to send their children to the private schools in Lakewood. They're going to socialize in Lakewood. They're going to shop in Lakewood. And we're going to have all the traffic anyway. The Township Committee passed an impact fee. And that means that developers, when they get an approval, they'll have to pay an impact fee so the township has money to fix the problems. And that's my advice, is to, and I know the planning board recommended the impact fee, the Township Committee passed the impact fee, but my advice to this board is to focus on the traffic improvements and the impact fees, and looking at, just like all the other master plans have said, allowing for appropriate development in appropriate locations in accordance with smart growth principles, and having traffic. The township already hired a traffic engineer to study it. I know they're working with the county to work on the county roadways. Route 9 is a disaster. It's a disgrace that the state has left Route 9 in that state. You show me one other area with near our population that has a 2-lane road that bottlenecks everything and makes everybody drive creatively through different situations to get anywhere. Route 9 is a disaster. I don't see that getting fixed because the state is unfixable. The county is working with Lakewood, and they certainly will work with Lakewood because Lakewood's an important part of the county. And the Township Committee has taken the right direction. If this board follows that direction, the planning board passes a master plan that has those traffic improvements, that's my opinion on how to solve the problem, and that's what this process should be doing. Thank you.
If Brian is happy with this master plan subcommittee, we are all in trouble. The reason why I'm mentioning this, he was not so happy with you guys before. He sent out an email to the developers, please come and voice your concerns that you'll lose money. And they all came out last time. This time there's not so many. There's still some clapping in the back, but not so many as last time. They don't harass us like last time. Thank you for Lakewood Police Department for being here to save the seniors from the agony that they went through last time. The reason why I think Brian is so happy with this master plan, because this master plan in the beginning was trying to do secret meetings. And then was a public outcry, and they stopped it, they did everything in public. When the chairman of this board said that we shouldn't increase density, that's when Brian Flannery went ballistic, and he sent out that email. Obviously, as the seniors voiced their opinion, the developers were standing in the back and harassing them, but it didn't do the job. So they came up with a creative idea that we'll do secret meetings. And nobody told us that they're secret meetings. They were caught red-handed with an Oprah request, and we had to go through hundreds of emails till we found out about these secret meetings. And once these secret meetings were taking place, we caught them in the act. They were not so smart to do it in a different place, to move it in the last minute. I don't know why. But there was a public outcry, and now they're trying to say we release the minutes. You know what pressure we had to do that this not releasing this minute is not ethical and not consistent with the open. I'll just explain to you. There is. I'll be open and blunt. The Jewish members on this committee, in the public perception in the Orthodox community, is that they're all representing special interests or developers that are actually getting paid by them. That's the perception public. I didn't say that this is what's happening. But when there's a perception of the public that some corruption is taking place, I'm sorry for the word corruption, I'm not saying that this is what is happening, but this is what the public is getting this vibe. Usually a committee would want to be open and say listen, we don't have anything to hide. We'll do everything open. And I think, Justin, you were the one in the beginning that was recommending we should do it open in that meeting that they were trying to do it closed in the beginning. So when the government is hiding, that is another eyebrows that corruption is taking place, especially when there is the perception that these board members are not representing the public, are representing special interests. Now, a lot of people are asking me, why are you so concerned about government, special interests, corruption? And we just saw that there was Medicaid fraud, and there was a big, the news, and generally in the Orthodox community in Lakewood, people were very upset about the religious prosecution that the Ocean County prosecutor did. Almost every individual in Lakewood was upset about it, except of one group, the Vaad of Lakewood. Except of the Vaad, everybody in the public was upset. So the question is, if we get upset about people getting prosecuted for allegedly doing something wrong, and and me myself, I was upset about it. Why are you so upset when you see the government does these wrongdoings? And the answer to that is, I just want to answer it. When anybody wants to fill out the application for Medicaid, they could get approved. And if somebody needs, because he's a religious minority and he has school and he has other expenses, and he needs the medical needs for his kids, and he has no choice, and he has to lie on application or not look it so truly and try to get government help for his kids when he has no choice. It's like driving down Route 9 and you can't pass through, you have to make a right, pass through on the right. It's a 2-point ticket, and it's more dangerous than stealing from the government. You could run over somebody, and everybody in Lakewood does it. That's the price of living in Lakewood. You can't drive without violating the law. So a thing that everybody could do, then you have, some people have moral values, some people have less. The problem with the government of Lakewood, and again, this is my opinion, could be somebody holds differently. If corruption would have had a smell, you wouldn't be able to stand in a 50-mile radius from Lakewood from the smell of corruption. I'm finishing up. The problem with this, with the problem when the government hides and they do this type of stuff, the problem with that is that only certain people have the advantage of getting things, but the general public doesn't. It's not like Medicaid that everybody can do it and some people have moral values. Over here, we're given an opportunity to only a few people to steal from the general public. And that is why people are upset when you guys are acting like you're corrupt. I'm not saying you are corrupt. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm just saying is you're acting this way. That's the reason why there's open laws and there's Oprah laws to show the public and all that. Now, to the TNM. You know, he looks like a nice individual. I don't know if you did the last plan, the re-examination. But the fact is, when you did the last master plan, look what a mess you made in Lakewood into. Look what you did. We can't drive through streets over here. We can't go out of complexes. It's a disaster. To come and say that the same company that represented us then is doing it again, it raises eyebrows why your company is raised on this. And I don't want to say the word. I will just keep silent on that. But there was things mentioned over here tonight, and I'm finishing up, about a lot of stuff that was mentioning over here. I feel it's like when we were a kid, we watched the Pinocchio video, and every time he said a lie, the nose grew, and then it whole part. I feel over here, when this would be Pinocchio, we would have had a whole forest on the nose. Just speaking about, we're going to do the density, to increase density because we're going to widen the roads. The RSIS states that you cannot ask to widen a developer roads more than 32 feet. To say that you're going to make it 40 is outright, again, you might be misinformed, or you might not know, or you might simply lying. I don't know what it is. But you cannot ask a developer to widen roads. And this is what's going to happen. They're going to argue with me. They're going to say you could. They'll increase density because we could widen roads. And then when the court will say, yes, we cannot ask the developers to do that, they'll say, oh, what should we do? Like this town is doing with all this. And the reason why that ordinance was not overturned by the court, because you didn't give notice to the public, that the public should be able to voice their opinion. That's the reason why the court overturned it. So I looked up in the minutes, the short period of time that you gave me opportunity to look it up. Finally, thankfully, you exposed it to the public. Says that the county is considering dualizing a cross street. That is an outright lie. I spoke to the county. They said they want to make turning lanes. If you guys want to put on the record that you want to dualizing Route 9, tell it to the county to charge more impact fees for the developers. They're only charging you for turning lanes. They're not charging you for 2 lanes per side. So going through, I was looking in the minutes. They want to increase the density in Prospect and Cross by Massachusetts Avenue because there is a development that was approved. What is that development called? The campus ordinance, that they have apartment buildings, and therefore it's already increased. Nobody was asking is if they got approved, why are they not building? They want to do duplexes, make it less, not more, because they got approved for a higher density. The reason why they're not building, because their buildings is approved on a public right-of-way, on a paper street. And the township government, don't know why, I guess some of them do the right thing, doesn't want to vacate those streets. So technically, this approval that they have is worth less than the tissue paper that you have over here in the bathroom. So to go to increase density in the south side of Lakewood, that we cannot move around. I don't know about other sides. I just know about my side where I live. To go increase density over there, because some developers and special interests have a lot of land over there, and I understand them, they want to make money, but not taking into consideration the people that live over there. Start driving down there. You can't go out of the developments anymore. I moved there 15 years ago. It was a breeze. You know why I moved to that side of town? Because there was no traffic over there. I could have bought a house on this side. There was traffic. It was before they fixed up Route 9. And I moved to that side because that side didn't have traffic. It was a breeze driving through. Today you can't drive out of any development in the south side of Lakewood without being a reckless driver. Thank you.
Kathy Stillwell, 950 Brook Road in Lakewood. My first comment is that I think people get up to speak up here and speak about our master plan. They should be living in our town to have any influence on the conversation. The next point I want to make is that really too much of our present dilemma with traffic, etc., is due to the undue influence by politicians and some professionals here in town on those politicians. To me, I didn't know, this is my first time attending this meeting, I didn't know that Adam Pfeffer was part of your committee. Adam Pfeffer represents, I don't know how many applicants here before the planning board, before the zoning board. To think that he has no undue influence on what is going to be implemented is just bizarre. The mere appearance of a conflict of interest on any person of good moral character, they would excuse themselves from this type of a committee. Mr. Pfeffer, any builders that are on the committee reviewing this, builders that are actively building in town, I don't know if you have any, but I'm hearing that there are some sitting or influencing some of the decisions. Other professionals involved with applicants, and I'm sorry, Brian, that means you, should not be up here giving you any type of influence on what the master plan is going to be. This is about the people who live in this community. And I have to say, Mr. Flannery's business has represented all those builders, or many, many of those builders. He has argued before the planning board and the zoning board for narrower streets, no recreation, higher density than what's allowed, not meeting parking standards. So it was really very interesting listening to his proposals to you, because perhaps if that was really what we were doing 10, 15 years ago, and not having those arguments made for less, more, we would be in better shape today. So that's all I'm going to comment on for today. I do want to say one other thing. Trying to think of the wording that you used for the reason that zone, technicality. The T&M representative here said that it was a technicality, the reason why the court overturned the ordinance and nullified the ordinance in the R40 zone. I'm not familiar with that exact one, but we just had, my husband and I just took the township to court over our area because we live in an R15, R20 zone, and suddenly commercial building was approved in that zone. None of the residents were ever notified of that change to the ordinance, and we had to fund and fight to get the ordinance nullified because the township committee could not get enough votes to repeal it. They knew it was wrong, but they couldn't get the votes to repeal it. So we who pay taxes here to make sure that things are done properly had to pay attorney's fees to be able to make it right. It was overturned, and now we're fighting with builders over the going forward with it. It's just very troubling and disappointing that that is how our township has functioned recently. And I hope that the new master plan is clear, that the ordinances follow, because if they don't, the master plan is worthless, and that everyone involved and is going to be affected is allowed to communicate and understand what's going on in their zone. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. I'd like to address some of Mr. Flanagan's request for zoning variances, not the specific request, but the logic that he uses because it's prevalent throughout. Regarding reducing lot sizes to match, one of his arguments is to reduce lot sizes to match nearby senior housing lot sizes. And I'd like to say that this argument is faulty at best and specious at worst. There is no comparison between senior living and non-senior living. Seniors tend to own one car per household, have 1 to 3 occupants. They spend most of the time on the premises of their development. These developments have amenities such as clubhouses, pools, organized activities, etc. Contrast this with a development for growing families. Such families usually have 2 vehicles and, thank God, a multitude of children. Often both parents work outside the home. There's a constant need to transport children to doctors, to schools, to camps, to therapists, to play dates, to extracurricular activities. These developments have at best small playing areas for the children, and usually extremely small, just large enough so that they can claim they have this amenity. I'm not averse to housing for growing families or for seniors who are also moving to Lakewood in droves. But we have to recognize the differences between the two communities. So to use the argument that seniors are able to build on smaller lots, so we should take these R10 and R15 zones and downsize them to match the seniors is really not a valid argument. It's clear that a development for growing families places a much larger strain on our infrastructure and resources than a senior development does, and thus the two should not be considered comparable when determining the zoning or the minimum lot sizes. So I urge you not to fall for such an argument. The other argument that he commonly uses is to say that there should be zoning variances to reduce lot sizes in areas of Lakewood because there are similar reduced lots already in those neighborhoods. So he's asking us to perpetuate the ill-advised variances that were given in the past. And if you approve these requests, or you include them in your master plan, then you can expect more such requests in the future, as these reduced size lot neighborhoods will have grown exponentially. So you see what these past decisions have wrought, and we shouldn't continue down the same road, pun intended. And I don't think Mr. Flanagan lives down that road or down any road in Lakewood. We do.
Nathan Reese, I live in Enclave. I really came here thinking they were going to discuss specific areas, so I'm not going to get into that, obviously. I'm just going to second what one of the gentlemen said earlier. I live near Cross Street, and if you have this empty land, empty areas in Cross Street, which obviously it's going to be built upon in time, there's no reason, though, to start building more schools and more apartment buildings, whatever it is. Let's try to stick to single-family homes, two-family homes, that we don't have to congest Cross Street in Massachusetts even more than it is now. Thank you.
My name is Carol Sucknell. I'm from the Fairways. I have to agree, I'm sorry I didn't catch the lady's name in the white dress, but I really think people making decisions in Lakewood should live in Lakewood. Brian Flannery left Lakewood because it was congested and no longer met his needs. Justin, I don't know why you left Lakewood. I remember another meeting when you told me. You live in Lakewood? I thought, what?
I haven't left Lakewood.
You haven't? I thought you said at another meeting you had. But I really think people representing us and representing the town should be people who live here and are really aware of everyday living, not just their pocketbook.
Good evening, Jim Campbell. I do want to thank you for your time, but I'm also going to ask you to be humble. Planning is not a perfect process. Man plans and God laughs, and he laughs at all of us. Now remember, other places were planned, Jersey City, Addison, how about that beautiful city of Detroit? You can easily overplan and overdemand. Density is the biggest issue facing us now. It's not just traffic, because there wouldn't be traffic if there wasn't so many people. If we have 100,000 now, that's probably suitable for a town this size. When does this become Paterson or Jersey City or Detroit? Enough is enough. Thank you.
My name is Alter Eliezer Richter. I live in Lakewood since.
Hold the mic up. There you go.
I live in Lakewood since I was born. I just would like to tell you what I feel about what's. I have no negativity. I just want to give you my opinion. When I was young, in school, we had a forest right near our school. During recess, we would go into the forest with friends. We would play in the forest. The amount that the kids knew of nature life is beyond words. They knew the names of different creatures that kids brought up in the city would never know of. They knew, we used to eat berries in the forest. I myself ate berries in the forest. We knew which ones are edible, which ones aren't. Now, the thing is like this. Lakewood is a 3,000 carat diamond. The fact of the matter is, if you have 100 people that want a 3,000 carat diamond, and you don't know how to give it to all 100 of them, so you say, what am I going to do? I'm going to split this 3,000 carat diamond to 100 pieces. And then you don't have a 3,000 carat diamond anymore. The fact of the matter is that the beauty of Lakewood and is in danger. And first of all, I know there's a lot of potential for contractors. There's a lot of potential to make money, right? Because the real estate went up a lot, right? So, what I have to say about that, first of all, they're living in the past. One successful app in high tech is worth more than all the houses you could build in Lakewood. Okay, that's number one. Okay, number two is that if a resident in Lakewood wants to build a house, okay, that's a different thing. But if I'm building just because I want to make money, right? And other people not necessarily. First of all, if you want many people to come, you say you want a lot of people. There's enough room in Jackson. Today's days we have cars, and we have many ways of transportation. There's enough people in Jackson, enough people in Howell, enough places in Howell for that. And second of all, I have a proposal. We should make a Jewish tent city, and a Jewish trailer park. Yeah, and I really think it's a good idea. I'll tell you something. The people living in a $500,000 house, I can't believe how someone pays for $500,000 for a house made out of popsicle sticks. Okay, and the fact of the matter is also, okay, that by the time this whole thing is done, okay, where there'll be so much people crushing around each other that they'll give Lakewood a kick and leave, because the fact of the matter is that this is as long as the smart people say that the building of the youth is destruction. The destruction of the elderly is the building. Okay, these elderly people that are saying that we shouldn't build right now. Okay, the fact of the matter is that they're building the value of Lakewood. Okay, I have no negativity towards anybody. I just want to tell you the way it is. I like everybody. Thank you very much.
Got to say my name or? I don't have to say my name. Okay, I'm lucky enough that I have my store right across the street, so I can just pop over when I feel like saying something to you guys. I want to thank you all for your service, first of all. Thank you for trying to help the town grow correctly. But I do want to point out a few things. This is not my opinion. I don't want to give you my own opinion because I think my opinion is worthless and it's not going to be listened to anyway. But I just want to point out a few things. One thing, first of all, before I even speak, I feel like a Neanderthal speaking after Mr. Roberts spoke so eloquently. And I just think we live in a backwards world where he's not sitting where you're sitting and you guys are sitting where you're sitting. So on that note, I know that you guys, how long have you been on this board? How long has this board been going on now? For over a year? It's been for about a year. So I'm sure you've heard this expression called smart growth. You've probably talked about it at every single meeting. So I just want to know, can anyone give me a definition of smart growth? Can you tell me what the definition, just anything, like, just tell me the definition. Mr. Lieberman, can you tell me the definition of smart growth? Oh, okay. So you've been talking about this for a year, yet you can't just tell me. This is not the $1,000 Jeopardy question. This is just.
I certainly can. I don't feel that this is a place to.
You could. Okay. So I'm going to do it for you. Mr. Gleeman. Mr. Gleeman, I'm going to do it for you.
If you'd like, we have a professional here, and I'm sure Lance.
I'm going to do it for the professional, even just in case, so he doesn't have to even bother. I mean, he charges to give the definition. I don't. I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to do it for free of charge. I'm going to give you the definition. I'm going to read it from my phone just because I don't want to mispronounce the exact definition. But the exact definition, there is a longer definition which discusses, making sure that people have workable areas where they can, walkable areas, working close to home and things like that. There are longer definitions, but this is the simple definition of smart growth. Planned economic and community development that attempts to curb urban sprawl and worsening environmental conditions. In other words, the definition of smart growth is exactly the opposite of what you guys are proposing. So I just want to point that out. I pointed that out about 10 years ago when the first discussions of smart growth came about in the township, and I was all excited, and I ran down to a meeting thinking to myself, like, this is great because I've been reading about smart growth, and I've been reading about new urbanism, and this is one of my favorite subjects, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to put in my 2 cents. And then I realized that you guys don't give a darn about smart growth. You don't even know what new urbanism is, and it doesn't apply to a town that's already half kind of urban already. And I just realized it's not, you guys are doing whatever you want. So I'm just wanted to point out, you don't know what smart growth is. Stop using that word. You've been using it for 10 years now. Tell the truth. You're here to try to smush as many houses in as possible to make as much money as possible. You don't give a damn if there are kids running across Route 9 trying to get to the candy store across the street. You don't give a damn about people sitting in traffic crying that they can't pick up their kids in time to get to their job in time. You don't care. You don't care. And I'm sick of hearing people say, well, you don't like it, move. I personally like it because I live in the 14th Street area, which in the near future, I'll probably be dead before a duplex goes into the 14th Street area, okay? Because we all know that certain people live there that are never going to allow a duplex to be built in the 14th Street area. But I don't see why other people need to suffer. And it hurts me, and people call me, and they cry to me. I don't know, I'm a town psychologist, whatever you want to call me, okay? But I know what people are saying. I know you guys know what people are saying, and you know the truth. And the truth is, and again, I sound like a Neanderthal standing in front of Mr. Roberts, but I'm going to say, sometimes it takes a child to say, hey, the emperor is naked, right? And I'm just going to say it like it is. What the people want is, they want all construction of large developments to stop now. They want no more, I'm going to list it, okay? That's number 1. Stop all construction of large developments. You tell me that they're going to sue us, let them sue us. It's cheaper than building new developments because new developments cost the taxpayers money. People don't realize the more people that move into this town en masse, in large numbers, costs everybody money. And if you tell me that's not true, I'll show you my tax bill, and my tax bill is 4 times what it was 10 years ago. That is not acceptable, it is not normal, and it's not fair to ask seniors who are living in senior communities to pay 4 times what they're paying when they bought their homes. Where are they getting that extra income from? And they're paying it simply so that developers can build more and more housing. And it correlates, if you look at the years, if you look at from 1980 to 1990, when there was a small amount of building going on in this town, taxes went up a small amount. From 1990 to 2000, as it increased, taxes started increasing. From 2000 to 2010, people's taxes went up double, sometimes triple, because the building went up double and sometimes triple. It is a direct correlation to building, and if you tell me that I'm wrong, look at every other town. Howell has a 1% growth rate. Do they have that because they're antisocial? They don't like people? No. They have a 1% growth rate because they understand that you build, you pay. That's how it works. You need commercial to be able to offset the cost of services needed for people living in a town. It's that simple. So that's step number 1. This is, again, not my opinion. Not my opinion. This is what people are saying to me, okay? They don't want any more large developments. That's number 1. They don't want any more duplexes built anywhere in this town. Because duplexes, 2 houses on a lot that used to have 1 house, means that there's now 5 or 6 cars coming out of that single lot where there used to be 2. And that causes congestion and it causes problems in town. They also don't want any more basement apartments. Because basement apartments also, they didn't belong there. And it costs the town money, and those houses aren't paying their fair share of taxes. And 1 basement apartment needs 2 basement apartments. And we live in a town where our own township committee man has 2 basement apartments in his own home. And I'm not telling anyone a surprise, because if you drive down Pine Street, you can see it right in front of your eyes. 2 driveways, 2 entrances, 2 basement apartments. Okay? Is this normal? Is this normal, I ask you? Is it normal? So remember again, smart growth is to stop sprawl and to stop ruining our environment and to stop ruining our way of life. You can't ruin the way. Smart growth is supposed to help us, okay? You want to do true smart growth, you would fix up the bad parts of the town, try to repair what's wrong, stop giving away paper streets, and just do what's right, okay? Bye.
Patty Robinson, 79 Eagle Ridge Circle, the Fairways. We need to stop this now. Everyone agrees that the traffic in Lakewood is a nightmare. Before we add any more density housing, we need to fix the problem of the traffic. I don't know if any of you have been through the new townhouses that are being built right by Route 9 on Cross Street. Each one of those townhouses has a basement apartment with 3 bedrooms. The townhouse itself has 5 bedrooms. Each one of those townhouses has 8 bedrooms. And if you drive back in there and drive through the roads, how a fire truck is going to get back there is a nightmare. How those cars are going to get out onto Cross Street is a nightmare. Now you're talking about developing the golf course the same way. We need to stop this. Lakewood is a beautiful town. We all moved here for a reason, because we liked it. But what is happening to this town now is an absolute nightmare, and it's a disgrace. We need to stop this density housing until you fix some of the traffic problems and let this town be what it can be.
Nothing great in Sienna Way. I'm not a developer. The way people talk about developers, you would think they were disease-ridden, flu-ridden, everything. But the developers can only develop if people demand it. It's just a very basic form of economy. The people demand more housing because they like it here. I don't know why. I can't answer for anybody other than myself. I have my family here, and they were all allowed to move here because houses were built for them. So as more people want to move here, that's the reason the builders and developers get to develop, because people want to be here. So if I want to develop in a town that has nothing attractive, I will get nobody to buy from me. The reason the developers are able to sell is because people want to be here. So if that's more people move in, more housing is needed. It's really simple. The same reason Manhattan started as an island and it became Manhattan. It started with one house, but people wanted to be there, and that's just how it goes. You can have smart growth, but you have to be able to allow people to live where they need to live with their families. Thank you.
How you doing, Sam Schulman? I'm on Drake Road. I've been there my whole life. I was born on Cross Street, lived there for 20 years. I'm on Drake Road now for over 30 years. I'm not a developer or planner or anything like that. I couldn't give you the definition of smart growth like the guy did. But if I had to look out my window, I'd rather see tastefully done homes than see schools or something like that. Nice, taken care of homes, R12, whatever it is, families like that. I'd rather see that than big buildings of schools and stuff like that. That's it.
Howard Sefton from the Fairways. Some time ago, I heard Mr. Flannery, who fled Lakewood because of traffic, make what I considered one of the most idiotic statements I have ever in my 80 years of life heard. And that was that density and traffic have nothing to do with each other. According to Mr. Flannery, if he was in a lifeboat that was built for 20 people and it was sinking because there were 30 people in it, his answer would be, put more people in the boat. The only way density will not affect traffic is if the people moving here leave their cars someplace else. Otherwise, 1,000 more cars on the street, 2,000 more cars on the street, where are they going to go? There is no place for them to go. I saw something the other night that I felt was horrible. And that was something that took place in the new houses on Cross Street, just west of Route 9. Two little children who obviously had just moved in to one of the apartments that have their backyard facing Cross Street. These two little children, they couldn't have been more than 3 and 4 years old, came out from their deck, walked down, and were playing within less than 10 feet of the traffic on Cross Street. No curbs, nothing to stop a car from coming across and hitting them. We all know that people make their own right turn lane on Cross Street because if you wait for the light, you're going to grow old. And here are these cars trying to sneak through with these two little children playing there. That should not be allowed, especially in a town that says we have to protect our students by busing them. So in other words, until they get to school age, their lives are worthless. It's a horror, and it's getting worse, and nobody's going to stop it because nobody really cares. It's all dollar driven.
Ariel Schulman, 59 Drake Road. I'd like to see housing instead of schools. I think that the properties around me that have been sold, the larger pieces, are all dilapidated. It makes, the garbage is disgusting. It makes the area look like a slum. So yes, I'd rather see homes than schools. The other thing I'd like to address is I've lived down the street from Brian Flannery for over 30 years. I think it's disgusting that people come up here. He is a resident of this town. He gave a service to this town. Whether you agree that he's a planner and you don't like what he did during his planning, whether you were here when he was the planner or not, the man gets paid for a job and he does his job well. Now, I think it's horrible that people want to call him a liar. Whatever you think of him, if you have nothing nice to say, you know, you can criticize his work, but don't criticize the man. That's just, yes, he moved out of Lakewood, just like most of us want to who lived here and had rural lives. But I don't think that anybody should bash anybody up here in a public session just because he, you know, I don't care what you think of him, but to stand here and to say some of the things that you say is just not nice. You wouldn't want anybody talking about your family member that way, your friends that way. You disagree with him business-wise, fine, but leave the character out of it.
Charles Silverstone. I would like to second what that lady said. This is a meeting for people's opinions about smart growth in this town and nothing else. People who get up and start hurling accusations, personal insults, and anything that does not have to do with that should be shut down. Thank you.
My name is Gershon Silber. I live in Lakewood, and I would like to talk about density. This is the master plan hearing for density. Now, I believe that if people want to live in density, no one should tell them not to. But at the same token, if the roads are not repaved, and we all know that the reason why there's potholes in every corner and every street in Lakewood is because of density, because the developer comes, he builds a house, he opens the road, and then he fixes it and it becomes a pothole. I believe that, first of all, if a developer opens any road in Lakewood, he should fix it from curb to curb, not just a piece in the middle. Because this township, even though we have a tremendous growth of like 1,000 homes a year and more taxpayers than any other town in Lakewood or any other city in any other town in New Jersey, still, for some reason, we don't have money to pave the roads. We don't do it. There's so many roads in Lakewood that need to be repaved. Somerset Avenue, it has to be repaved. But I'm sure you don't want to repave it because, like Ridge Avenue, now you're going to repave, because when I moved in 2009 to Ridge Avenue, you had to repave it then. But what? We have to wait another 9 years because the whole street is going to have to be redeveloped. More people are going to build. We don't want to pave it now. Same with Somerset Avenue. Somerset Avenue is a whole puddle. Probably because there's a forest over there that one day you want to make houses over there. You didn't do it yet, therefore you don't want to repave it because soon you're going to have to repave it again. So I believe that before you even talk about density and more density, you need to take care of the roads. You have to repave all the roads that have to be repaved in Lakewood, because the reason why there are so many potholes in Lakewood is because of development. Now, there's a development called it's called Eden Street or whatever, North Apple. So there was a forest over there, a piece of land. Somebody went and developed it. Now, anybody from that development who wants to go into county line, he wants to make a left because he wants to go to Somerset or to any other area. No car will let him make a left. He can only make a right. So when you build a development, you should build a light. That the light should be synced with the next light on Squancum, that whenever their light becomes red, this light should be red and people should be able to make a left. Otherwise, how could you build developments without making lights, without doing sidewalks, without doing anything? So if you want to do development, I have nothing against it. People want to live in density, let it be like Brooklyn, I don't care. But you have to take care of the roads of the town, you have to take care of the lights, of the traffic. Let's say right now you do Oak Street Corridor, which brings more traffic to Route 9 that is already backed up. Yeah, the county will take care of it. When? In 25 years from now. And we all know this is a problem. And it doesn't seem like in the past 10, 15 years anybody took care of it. For example, now I drove up to here. So I drove up Clifton Avenue, and Clifton Avenue is backed up going south up until 6th or 7th Street. I was only able to see up until 6th Street. So the fact that the lights are synced doesn't help anyway, because Cedar Bridge is probably backed up. Route 88 is backed up. Route 9 is backed up. So anybody who wants to go down can go down. So I don't understand how you can even think about making this town more density when the infrastructure doesn't allow it. So you want to do density? Do it. But first, take the infrastructure and widen the roads that have to be widened, and then do density all you want. But to do density, before you work on the infrastructure, before you widen the roads, before you fix potholes and repave roads, I think that this is not smart growth. Smart growth is to grow smart, a township that a lot of people want to move into when the roads allow it, not when the roads don't allow it. That's what I think. You're welcome.
Is there anybody else?
Mordecai Acorn. No address, right? First of all, I would like to commend the committee for many months of tireless, unrewarding work. It's unfortunate to have to hear sometimes implied accusations or direct accusations being made towards the committee. But no matter what your decisions are and whatever you did, we appreciate very much on behalf of the whole town all the hard work that has gone into everything that you guys have done. I've been involved in many aspects of real estate in this town, whether it's helping people sell their houses, whether helping people buy their homes. I own the Remax of Lakewood. I sometimes dabble in land development in town. And I've helped many people in the senior communities, whether it's Enclave, whether it's in Lake Ridge, and other developments, and throughout the whole town, help them sell their homes, and a lot of times help them purchase homes too. And I get to hear from many people a lot of the comments, a lot of the issues, a lot of the concerns, and sometimes a lot of suggested solutions too. Now, I'm not sure if people are realizing, I mean, it's great to come out and just scream and say, okay, let's stop all density and let's stop everything, and that's going to be the solution to all our traffic issues. But I'm not sure if people realize that in the last year, we've sold close to 100 homes in Jackson in our office. And a lot of those people that are buying in Jackson are buying somewhere in the White Road area, Linda Road, off of Cross Street, East Veterans Way. And you turn to these people and ask them, how are you getting into town? Where are you going shopping? Where are you sending your kids to school? Where are you going to services if you have to go? And the majority of the people will tell you, probably 90% of them will tell you throughout the week, they'll travel down Cross Street, they'll travel down James Street, they'll travel down Prospect, Hope Chapel. And people thinking that, okay, we're going to stop all the density in town, that's going to stop all the traffic. I hate to break the news. It ain't going to stop anything. The traffic, the people who are going to be traveling to the schools are going to be using the same roads. They're going to be using the same schools. They're going to be using the same synagogues, the same shopping centers that everyone else uses. Which means it's the same traffic, it's the same additional traffic. So the anti-density movement is ultimately not going to be the 100% cure to this issue. And I understand that the township, understanding these concerns, have gone ahead and they've passed a new ordinance, which cost, if I'm not mistaken, the developers close to $8 or $9 million. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but somewhere in that range, based on the way I understood the impact fee disbursements. And the concept behind that, if I understand correctly, is again, is in order to improve the roadways, in order to double up Cross Street. Again, I don't know if that's the plan, but the ideas is to improve traffic control, traffic movement throughout the whole town. I've also been involved in helping people sell land. Now, we had a situation where a couple years ago, like someone mentioned before, there was a rezone in the areas, let's say Drake, Cross Street. And what happened was, as a result of that, a lot of developers jumped quickly to try to buy some of the land there with the hope to be able to improve it and build some homes. Turned out that rezone got overturned in court with a technicality like Brian mentioned before. And as a result of that, I got the second opportunity to sell their homes again, which works well for me. But we sold those pieces of property, those 5-acre parcels on Neiman Road, on Cross Street, and now all of a sudden we see these gorgeous, stunning schools being built. And I don't think your traffic has gotten any better on those roads, Neiman Road, Cross Street, Drake Road. I drive the roads pretty much a whole day. I'm on the streets at every time of the day. I'd rather get stuck behind 50 cars than get stuck behind one school bus. So I know what the traffic is like. And the people living on Cross Street, as a matter of fact, I just bought a piece of property on Newport Road with the hope to possibly build my own home there. I drove my wife there one day. I made a mistake. I took her out around 9:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning, somewhere around that time frame. And we got stuck behind a couple of buses. And she realized that this was not the neighborhood for her. She'd rather be in a residential neighborhood than be in a school district. I turn to all you people, a lot of the people living, it seems like a lot of the people who came out tonight were anti-density. And I understand the frustrations. Trust me, I sit in cars the whole day and I get as frustrated as everyone else over here does. But when I turn many times into the Lake Ridge area and the Enclave area off of Massachusetts, and I look at those beautiful trees on the right side, going all the way westerly from Massachusetts all the way to Prospect and Cross, and I wonder what's going to be there one day. As you make a left turn into the Eagle Ridge, on the right side, you could be sometimes potentially waiting 15, 20 minutes to make a left turn to go golfing, because on the right side there may be a school of 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 square feet with maybe 100 buses, 50 buses, whatever the numbers are, pulling in and out. And I'm not sure if you're calling the right shot by yearning for the end of density, because what's going to happen is the end of density basically means that these houses, these large pieces of property, the buyer is going to be a school. And I can show you on paper, every property that was zoned for 1 acre zone for those 3 or 4 years that I had listings, and quite a few of them, I probably sold over 50 acres of it. During those couple of years that there was R40, we're standing strong on R40 zone, every one of those properties sold to schools and large schools. And ultimately that means many school buses and lots of traffic. So I think twice before we scream anti-density. I think the time has come. We talk about properly the proper infrastructure for roads. That is a must, because whether we build in Lakewood or people buy in Jackson who are going to be using our infrastructure, ultimately they're going to be using our roads. And if our roads don't fit and don't work for all those people, it's not going to work for anyone. Another, just one quick suggestion I just ask of the Master Plan Committee is that if I had to say one thing that I look back over the years, I would have loved to see a little different. As someone who is, I can't say pro-development, but pro-growth, I would have loved to see some sort of master plan targeting or focusing on the implementation of roads connecting across each other. It shouldn't end in cul-de-sacs. Like, for example, all those new developments on Route 9, Cushman, Chateau Park, Sterling Forest, Sterling Place, High Street, from the better ones, I guess, is Presidential Estates. They all have one access road. So while at the same time I'm pro-development, I would love to see a little higher density, so this way the properties don't end up all being one big school district in this town. I would love to see the road, the infrastructure, and the crossroads being lined up properly with the foresight that ultimately we're going to have cars coming in and out of developments, and it shouldn't all be in one location. It should be crossed, and it may minimize some of the value to a certain extent, but I think developers will appreciate that too in the long run. Like, for example, one of the developments that we're selling right now is called Sunset Grove. It's between James and Prospect Street. And the township insisted, and the zoning planning board insisted, that there should be access from James all the way to Prospect. Now, yeah, when it comes to selling these homes, is there a little bit less value by the fact that it could be used as a crossroad in between Prospect and James, yes, there is a little less value. But ultimately, in the long run, the township appreciates good planning and good zoning. And with that being said, it would be nice to be able to, let's say, for example, the Prospect Triangle, which I know is one of the hot spots, we would love to see some sort of crossroads where people can come in and go out a different road as opposed to just coming in and going out of the same road constantly. Thank you.
Before we go any further, Officer Milano has a set of keys. Did anybody lose a set of keys?
Acura SUV, gray SUV, over you? Over here on the right hand side?
It's not really his, it's just saying his. Just so everybody, just so everybody knows, I said at the beginning that will take about an hour of public comment and about 4 minutes, and we've gone over that. That's okay. So if there's anybody else that wants to say anything, please come up to the front. Okay, and just keep your we've heard a lot of comments. Keep your comments brief, keep them pointed, and we're getting ready to finish up. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Hirsch, resident of Lakewood. Last master plan there was talk about some areas being developed higher density, and there was also spoken about building the infrastructure. We did a phenomenal overdoing of the density, but we did not do the infrastructure. A lot of stuff since the last master plan has been implemented. Roads disappeared, and we didn't take care of infrastructure. I don't think that we should be putting in again any more density, higher density, until there is a clear resolution of these roads, because we cannot handle anymore. Like someone just said, there's neighboring towns, and they're using us also, so we have to stop building more in our town. We have to put these kids that we're putting in there in schools. So guess what? We're going to over-densify, and we got to put them in schooling, because they're not going to sit home all day. So now we're going to have more housing, more schools. I don't know where you're going to put them. Every action has a reaction. So you're going to put more houses. You're going to have more traffic with cars, and you're going to have more school buses, because those kids, it's not just houses and cars, but they have kids that got to go on school buses. So now you need more school buses. So that last speaker said, oh, we'd rather have cars, but this is going to cause more school buses as well, and more buildings of schools. Now, since we don't have a handle, weren't able to handle the density issue in line with the infrastructure, we cannot consider any more density without infrastructure. Obviously, the last master plan called for both. It was completely ignored. Infrastructure was ignored. Roads were eliminated. It cannot happen. Obviously, people they get up and speak. No disrespect to Brian Flannery, but according to where you guys are, you guys represent the town. The township committee appointed you guys because you're supposed to represent us. He does not represent the township, the residents of Lakewood. He doesn't live in Lakewood. If he was an attorney, he could represent the residents of Lakewood, but he does not represent people that live in Lakewood. He represents a certain group, but he's not an attorney to represent them. So again, what he says cannot be listened to because he is not a resident of Lakewood, and he cannot be asking for something that he wants. So in other words, we're going to have someone from Trenton talk about something because he's got some properties here. So let's listen to him too. No, you guys are supposed to be doing what the people of Lakewood want. Government is here to serve its people. And we elected people, and they put you guys on to hear what the people want, and nothing should be done in back rooms. Zone changes, all that needs to be done in public. I don't know where that came from. I heard that you earlier had said it shouldn't be done in private, it needs to be done in public. If this zone change is proposed, it needs to be approved by the people. The people need to hear it and need to give opinions on it. It should not be private backroom deals. I'm sorry, I told the mayor about this as well. We have to do this in public. This is basically how we develop our town. The people need to decide how they develop their town, not people that want to take advantage and destroy the town in the process, because we've seen where the town went in the last 10 years, in the last master plan, where that's gone. So more people, more schools, more cars on the road. And what about when we do high density, do we ever consider the future residents that will be living there? Do you think they want to be squashed and also they don't realize what they're getting into? Because a lot of these people are not even coming from locally. We haven't even considered the future residents of these communities. When we over-densify them and they can't move, we're destroying their quality of life as well. So we're not doing anyone else a favor by overkilling the community. I just want to get, just so I'm clear, I'd like to know from T&M, which guidebook do you guys follow for the master plan? Because I want to make sure that the rules I want to know on record what the state requirement, I believe that the DCA requires to follow a certain set of rules. Is there a specific guidebook on that?
We follow the municipal land use law, New Jersey municipal land use law.
Which section particularly talks about the master plan and how it's supposed to be done and all the, because I'd like to get that on the record to know exactly which section deals with the master plan and how it's appropriate and how it is supposed to be performed. Because I'd like to make sure that we're doing everything according to the book, like the state requires us to do.
Sir, with you a second.
Sure, no problem. I didn't think you have enough. It's okay.
4055D28, I believe. I think it's 28.
What was it?
He's going to check. I think it's 4055D-28.
That's correct, yeah. It's appropriation of the master plan. It lists the different elements that are part of a master plan.
And does it say also the requirements of the master plan, what it's supposed to?
Very specific.
It's very specific, and who is supposed to be on it, and who is, and what it's supposed to represent, what the people want and stuff. Basically, it's supposed to go into. Okay, I'll look at it.
Yeah, you have to read through it.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I'm on focus on the right section when I go. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
If I can do it in about a minute. I'd like to debunk the scare tactic that if we don't have high-density housing, we're going to have more schools. There's 130-plus schools already. Maybe we need another school or two and get rid of some of the small ones. But that's only a scare tactic by people who are involved in real estate or developing, etc. Could there be another large school on Cross Street? Probably. But that's not scary. High-density housing. More housing, more kids, more buses, more schools. That's crazy. Please. No more high density in Lakewood. Let's enjoy what we have. Thank you.
I think if there's nobody else, this is going to be our last speaker of the evening. Just trying to keep it point.
I'll try to stay nice and relaxed.
Thank you.
I just want to answer the last comment. If we're not scared, you can hear me? Oh, is that better? If we're not, and I don't know your name, I'm sorry, but if we're not scared of schools, then why do the seniors find it necessary to ask the township to pass an ordinance saying that in their neighborhood there are no schools? I just find it a little bit disingenuous.
I can answer that question for you outside the hearing.
Just a question. I wanted to speak about something that happened during the last meeting when I was here. I got up to speak about parks. There was a large crowd over here, sitting here, and the comments that I got from the audience were something to the effect that I don't pay taxes. If I understood it correctly, the reason they said that, because they were following the blogs of what I would call anti-Semitic blogs, that if I'm Orthodox and religious, I'm from those people who don't pay taxes. The only person that called them out of that, God bless her, is Judy Singer, who screamed, stop with anti-Semitism. But what bothered me more than anything is that it just passed by, and I'm not condemning any of the members of the board or other people that were here, but Mr. Habde found it necessary to send a letter to the prosecutor talking about something about the effect and how the seniors are being treated, but no one seemed to care about the fact that there was blatant anti-Semitism being directed in my direction. And it just passed by as if nothing happened, especially in the times that we're living. I apologize, I'm Jewish, I'm sensitive to this. I think, Justin, you come from a family of people that lived through this in very hard times. I don't think it's right for us to just let these things happen without commenting on them. I would go as far as saying that Bill Hodday, who raised the flag and somehow was deaf to this, maybe he should go to some sensitivity training and realize what it means for a Jew to hear people scream at him that he doesn't pay taxes just because it's some perceived notion by some anti-Semites that Jews don't pay taxes. I pay taxes. A lot of people pay taxes over here. I think we pay more than our fair share, and we should never be addressed that way. Thank you.
Board members, I think that concludes our presentation. Thank you all for coming, and we're going to do a draft report, and we hope to see you on July 7th. Thank you. Have a good night.